Welcome back. It is time for our final session of the day, Design and Mobility. Let's bring in Paolo Tumminelli. He is a professor of design at the University of Cologne and the CEO of Goodbrands. Welcome, Paolo.
Thank you, Lara, and good evening, guys. I still have to concentrate and not to say ladies and gentlemen anymore. So if Lufthansa abolished it, I must do it. Ladies and gentlemen, it just doesn't reflect the complexity and the diversity our society has grown into anymore. The world changes, words change. So what about the word automobile? You close your eyes and possibly you see a big, black, mostly ugly SUV. Is that all? Is that it? No, of course not. The automobile is more than that. It's a way of life, a Weltanschauung, würden the Germans say. The automobile has been with us for 4,500 years. Only at the beginning it was called ox cart. And ox carts are still there. Millions of people in many parts of the world are using them. The past, the present, and the future of automobility is always melting together. So when we're talking about the future of the automobile, where is automobility actually heading to? We are not only talking about styles or technology. Technology is what everybody is focusing on today. But also we are talking about values and attitudes. Thinking of the car of the future, it's not only how it's going to look like, but more interesting and more triggering is how is the car of the future going to shape the way we live? It's actually a design task. So to speak with Le Corbusier, we would say there's a big potential, but some eyes have not yet seen where the automobile is going and what the automobile can. Therefore, we invited to SHIFTx Mobility makers and thinkers from within and beyond the automobile world to share their insights and imagination with us today. Just take it as your opportunity to have a 5-minute ride in the car of the future and allow me to be your chauffeur for a while. To start with, let's dig into coach building, one of the most traditional businesses in car making. They've been there for 100 years, and even more actually. They've been following the car from when it was born down to today, and I bet they will be there in the future too, redesigning, reinventing the automobile as it grows. Today with us at Shift Mobility, Andrea Zagato. Actually not here, we recorded this interview because he broke our holidays just for us.
Andrea Zagato, ciao and welcome at SHIFTx Mobility in Berlin. Thank you for being with us, virtually at least.
Thank you to you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Zagato, more than 100 years of coach building, and this in the hands of one single family. We have no time to make the history, but perhaps can you give us a 360-degree idea of what Zagato is doing today?
We have 3 business units, Atelier, Studio, and Oltre. Atelier is the historical core business of Zagato since 1919.
Can I speak?
Studio is the transportation design business unit that doesn't use the Zagato signature. And Oltre developed collaboration with a similar positioning of automotive, but outside automotive, Oltre, beyond. The Atelier, that is the core business, is divided in contemporary and classic. Contemporary are contemporary model up to 19 that are built in our premises in the Zagato number 1, while in the number of 99 are built at the OEM premises. Classic are the classic recreation that are, can be continuation or sanction lost. Continuation are when the model, the original model still exists, and we need, in collaboration with OEM, the continuation number of the chassis. Sanction lost is when the original model of Zagato has disappeared, get lost, and we are recreating the model through our archive and through the photometric measurements process applied to the original picture. That's a block.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Andreas. It's actually a challenging business, as it sounds. It's not so easy and linear as one may think. What would you say, speaking of the core business, is the biggest challenge? And maybe let's talk about design today for Zagato.
Well, the challenge today is to overcome a possible change of technology. And most of the OEM are overcoming this or solving this challenge by concentrating the bonnet brand into major big groups. Marchionne was the prophecy of Marchionne was only 6 group will remain in the automotive business. On top of this concentration brings a standardization of the components. So, of course, if you become part of a major group, you accept to standardize most of the subsystems. On top, if the electric motor will win the battle, we don't know, this standardization will become more evident and inevitable, if I may say. In this scenario, I believe design could become the main element of differentiation. And not only the design, but also the history of the models. Not the history of the company that participated in the first 100 years of automotive, but the history of the models could become a competitive advantage. Zagato is not a bonnet brand. Zagato is a side signature, so should not be affected by this type of changement, technological changement. We work for over 100 years on the case of the car, and we should continue to work on the case regardless to the technology that we cover. However, the concentration of the bonnet brands in large group could make more difficult the interface or the interaction with these company, because they are more concentrated, of course, in large number. The core business is more to produce a large number. They are less interested in doing limited edition or small series. Just to give you 2 examples, Bentley, with the Bentley Continental GT, has produced, is now thinking in terms of thousands of cars, when before the advent of Volkswagen was thinking about hundreds of cars. And the Gallardo model overcoming in a number of production, the entire production of Lamborghini since the foundation, just to give you this idea. We are keeping our position and of making collectible. And in order to make this collectible, we tend to avoid the one-off and to prefer the few-off. Because with the few-off, we are able to distribute the investment costs, design, tooling, engineering, between among 5 and 9 car or 19. And this makes the final price for our clients more affordable. And we are sure that with this price, the car will keep the value or increase the value and is a real collectible.
Thank you. And we know that Zagato cars or Zagato bonds have the highest value in the classic market. Also, what we should remind is that, because you said electric, maybe Zagato was among the first to do electric cars with the Zelle in the 70s. Then you had the new technologies, body construction technologies in the 90s. It's been quite propositive, even coming, if I'm not wrong, from aircraft technology in the beginning. What is your take on a possible car of the future? Maybe not let's talk technology, but let's talk typology or spirit.
I'm not so positive, with some exceptions. As I get older, most of the model in circulation today remind me more computer than cars. Electronics word. So for me, they are less emotional to the models today, with some exception. That for me are those models who are guided by the design, and those models who are inspired by the history of the model, as I mentioned before. So if you connect the model to his history, then you, how do you say, steal some emotion from the history of the original model. If design has become the main differentiation element, this helps to differentiate the model from the other computer, let's say. Definitely, I like mostly sports car and Jeep. These are the two favorite models, because these two models are the extreme type of automotive models. The supercar are inspired by speed, aerodynamic, and while the Jeep are inspired by robustness and functionality. So the two extreme panorama of models that you can find today. One is low, is wide, is sleek. The other one is high, is squared, and very imposing. Both maintain the idea of having a ludic, how do you say, playful components in the product. While most of the computer car today have doesn't keep this attitude. And all of them are very for some reason more distinguishable from what I call the computer car.
A positive emotional glance into a possible future of the automobile. Andrea.
Of course, the vision. My vision is that in the future the car will look all the same. They will not be bought. They will not be purchased. They will be part of use, rental, or sharing contracts. So it's a kind of impersonal trend. However, if the design becomes the main element of differentiation, this is my wish. And if the new technology, like electric, will give more freedom to the design by reducing miniaturized, how do you say it in English, making more smaller components, this will give more freedom to the design and will give a chance to the design to overcome the car all identical word. That is not a good perspective.
From a small coach building atelier, we jump towards a global player in the automotive industry. The man who's with us today has an admirable track record as a chief designer with the most prestigious European brands, and he has now what I would call a dream job as the chief creative officer of Hyundai Motors. With us today, Donckerwolke. Hello, Luc.
Ciao, Paolo. Buongiorno. Ciao.
Buongiorno. Look, it's probably impossible to explain in 30 seconds what you're working with and working at, but perhaps you can give us an idea?
I will try. Basically, I am coordinating the design of the three brands, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis. On top of that, I have the responsibility for all the creative inputs that are being done for the three brands, whether we're talking about motor shows, where we talk about all the communication, plus for Genesis, the whole responsibility for the brand, which means marketing, global retail, buildings, design communication. So quite a fascinating job.
I guess so. I've seen you in a movie you just released yesterday, featuring Genesis, and you were promising us fantastic user experience, not only beautiful design, fantastic user experience, a fully electric future, but not only electric, also fuel cell plays a role at Hyundai, obviously something we don't speak about too much anymore here. And also, we've seen at the end flying cars. What is your vision? How is the car developing?
Well, we're in a phase of a change. We've been consuming cars the same way for the last century, and basically the younger generation have given us a perspective, saying that they don't want to be slave of the vehicle as we are. I mean, it's a really pleasant slavery. We love it, but the younger generation have a more rational perspective to it, and obviously we have to change. We have to change, and in those times of where the environment is transforming, it is actually the best time to learn and the best time to be creative. So I see it as a real positive time where we are going to change things, and we're not going to carry on doing the same thing all over again. The next model 10% better than the old one. This thing is a bit boring, and it's not making us any favor for the future.
I must ask you something that people always ask me, and I don't really have the right question because I'm not an insider as much as you are. We've seen electric cars coming, and we've seen them very similar to combustion engine cars, still in their architecture. My dream is of a completely new automobile architecture driven by the possibilities of new drivetrains. How far can really the automobile change, and what would be a projection that you could give us concretely, try to describe how far we can go?
Well, actually, I don't believe there are any limits. The main limits are given by the environment, and say the audience, the customers, which are still holding on to the traditional way of consuming car vehicles. But this is going to change. It's going to change very rapidly because, again, it's not about a force changed by a company, but it is the whole environment which is changing. And I do believe that there will be not a monoculture. This is my hope, but not only a hope, a passive hope, something I'm really working actively on it. We're going to kill the automobile if we are carrying on in a monoculture of typologies of vehicle and a monoculture of let's say, powertrain philosophies. So I do believe that the future will be diversified, always. But we do go from one extreme to the other. We always tend to kill the cow, and then we realize it's too late and we have to go back. And, I think this is where we have to be open. We have to be extremely, let's say, positive and working hard in those times. And I think that, we are passionate people, and passion will lead the future of the automobile. So even now we are kind of, let's say, overwhelmed by a certain rationale, which makes us believe that the fun is over, the good times of the automobile are behind us. It's not true. We are working hard to make sure that we are going to fascinate ourselves and the customers.
I've already paid you a compliment in private about the design quality of one of your latest concept cars, Genesis X, but still it is quite a conventional vehicle. I mean, it embodies the values of the automobile as we know it. In the past, not only car designers, but even architects have projected completely, you would say, almost radical visions of completely different cars. Do you sometimes feel the need to do something similar, not following what your customers would love to buy, but just following what imagination could project? And if yes, how could that look like?
That's a really good question. Well, I would like to open you the design studio now. It's a bit too early, but we'll have a chance to do that in the future. Well, you've seen the Genesis X, and the Genesis X has a certain, or the Essentia, for instance, have the kind of a role to bring the new powertrain philosophy into or beloved passion for bodywork, for carrozzeria. If you look at other vehicles that we're doing within the Hyundai Motor Group, like the Kia EV6 or the Hyundai Ioniq 5, they have or the Prophecy that we showed, they have a complete different role, and we are going to basically play a lot with teasing customers to what is possible to do. We basically want with this to show that, again, I've been talking about monoculture, and this is what I really don't want. I believe that there is room to admire and to carry on cultivating the love for classical automotive design with its proportions. I do believe as well that we can really wipe everything, make tabula rasa from all or let's say preconceived ideas, and create things which are passionate but turn into the future. The Kia EV6, for instance, is a good example of an inspiration which I gave to my designers. I put them one day a Lancia Stratos model on the desk, and I say, this car was different than anything else. I don't want you to make me a Lancia Stratos electric, but I want you to look at this and create something completely different with the Kia EV6. And okay, it does talk to us in terms of automotive passion, but it's completely new. Ioniq 5 has a different role as well. So we are playing, and again, you're going to see a lot of diversity, which is going to happen. And this is going to be all for the, let's say, the good of the audience, and automatically for the automotive market.
Look, I suspect we could speak for hours, and I'd love that, but I have to stop us now because we have to shift forward. Thank you very much for being with us today, and I look very much forward to what you're showing us in the next. And
fasten seatbelts, and thank you.
And with that, we jump to a completely different dimension of design. Design is not only designing things, it's also designing the way we design. And as a design studio that has been pushing design beyond boundaries and march forward, doing amazing things from private skies to sneakers. I don't know much about cars and cars philosophy, but I know KRAM Weisshaar is one of the studios to look for when you want to really dig into the future. And with us today is Clemence Weisser, founder and co-owner, I guess from Portugal, if I'm not right. Hello, Clemens.
That's right. Hello.
And thank you for being with us and for waiting for me. You've been called the vanguard of the next generation of digital designers. That's quite impressive. What does it mean exactly? At least to you.
Well, I never said that. That was Alice Rawsthorne of the New York Times. And I think what she means is that we just do things differently. We really, since the beginning, since we founded the studio, we've always been, using technology almost like a material. Like, computer code is as much a material as steel and aluminum are. I think that's the generational change that's happening. Yeah.
Just to materialize that, one of your last projects, I think it's top on your website now. It's called Future Strong, and it's a completely new way to conceive how sneakers are built. Now, for me, sneakers, or shoes anyway, are just a fundament of mobility. So basically, it's like a little car. First of all, perhaps, can you see a technology transfer of that magnitude transforming completely the way we build cars, basically doing that with completely different materials in completely different ways? Do you reach so far?
Well, I would think it's even inevitable to rethink not just the car, but the entire culture around what we call mobility. Because if you think about the fuel station, like the highways, like all those in the end cultural assets that were coined in the last century around the combustion engine and its necessities. Now we have the chance to fundamentally rethink everything again with a completely new way of powering cars. So yes, not only possible, necessary.
But in terms of materials, for instance, I mean, you've also worked a lot in how digital technology and even computer themselves can generate shapes. Then you have redesigned the way you actually build things. I mean, we still press cars out of metal. We make them timeless and forever, but they don't last forever anymore. We know because technology is there, because we see drivetrain changes. If I may ask you, would you have a vision for a radically new automotive concept that fits in our ecological and economical system in a completely different way? Have you made yourself up thoughts with that?
Well, I think one of the beautiful aspects of electric mobility is surely that, you know, suddenly something like a car workshop can be back in the city. There's not so much oil, there's not so much filth around it. There's not so much noise, etc., etc. And what that means for the vehicle itself is there has to be a new way of making it. Because the last way cars changed fundamentally was the introduction of automation, right? Like the coach building changed completely based on robots, you know, replacing conveyor belts. And I think now there's this point where there's almost like platforms become independent from chassis because the battery has a different lifespan and etc. So I think cars that are more modular again and more, you know, upgradable, etc., that will become a reality, which I think is really, really exciting.
The main question comes now. Perhaps you are doing it already and we don't know, but if you were given the task to design a car from scratch, where would you start from? What would be your guideline?
I think what everyone is kind of dreaming of is the simplicity of the good old cars that didn't have all this stuff. So I think I would start literally from scratch and try to build a car that's as simple as one can possibly build it. You know, like a race bike, like a race car, where there's nothing that's not really essential. And I think that's also something that is this chance to literally shed all this weight, because right now, like, you know, like more than a quarter of the car is all sorts of electronics and cables and copper and this and that, and that has to change, you know, because we need lighter cars and we need simpler cars that are more fun again, like the good old Panda 4x4.
I'm glad you mentioned the Panda. Perhaps you know it's one of my favorite examples of where car met people's expectation in a very straightforward way.
And of a radical redesign. You know, flat glass. Like there was so much that was just thrown out of the window, literally. So that idea of the refreshing idea, if you've ever sat in a race car, you know, there is no lever, there is none of that, none of the, you know, these memories of the coach building and of the, you know, the lever orgies in cars. I think that all needs to go. We need to go much more Panda.
One very last question, because you're so much in technologies, and I know you have a feeling for that. For you, electric car, is it the solution, or can we expect more?
There must be more. There must be more.
There must be more.
There must be more.
Fantastic.
I think it's a compromise that's born out of the necessity to decide something. But I believe there is, you know, the fuel. You know, everyone who's lived in Munich has grown up with fuel cells, because BMW used to drive quite a lot of cars around Munich with fuel cells more than 15 years ago. And I think there is huge potential there as well. And the limitations of the electric cars are obvious, and there needs to be something that fixes that. So,
fantastic.
Yep.
Clemens, even with you, we have to shift forward. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, and looking forward to see you.
10 years again.
Panda KRAM Weisshaar. Bye-bye.
Ciao.